Okay, good day, everyone. Good day, everyone. Welcome back to the second half of our Job Readiness session of day 2 of Youth Today Summer Program. We'll be jumping right into our next session, which is rights in the workplace. And as I said before the break, I feel like this is a very informative session, and I feel like all young people should know these tips that our presenter, Kim Riley, will be speaking on shortly. But I feel like it's just something that we all should know. We're always hasty to get a job, but we need to know what are our rights and what are the things that we should do in the workplace once we get our job. So without further ado, we will be going to our first session after the second half with Kim Riley, who is currently serves as the president of the Antigua and Barbuda Workers Union, and he'll be leading in this seminar. So Kim Riley, you can unmute and start presenting now.
Good morning. Afternoon.
Good afternoon.
It is a pleasure today to be presenting to you because the Antigua and Barbuda Workers Union, we represent from young workers right down to people who retire. So, and I'm very much aware, as the host was saying, that as young people, we eager to get a job, and we're happy to get a job, and we don't matter what the conditions are. And that then you fall into trouble because you accept a job and then it's not fitting to you. So I'm going to go into some of the rights and responsibilities you have as an employee. And I did say to the young lady that approached me, because she said the rights for young people. And I said to her, well, the rights is not separated from for young and old. The rights in the workplace is for both, whether young or old. So I'm going to jump in, and what I'm going to go through is out of the labor code, the Antigua Barbuda labor code, which highlights most of your rights. And as long as you follow these and the employer follow these, then you will not have any animosity in the workplace. And I'm going to start off with the conditions of work, or your condition of employment. And that refers to the element of your hire, right down to your termination, your remuneration, the hours of work, and the duties that you're asked to perform. And all this is supposed to be given to you 10 days after you would have been employed at the company. The labor code states that an employee is a person who enters into or works under a contract with an employer. So when you seek a job, you're an employee. And the employer is the person, which includes the representative who stands ready for a contract of service of labor of an employee. So the person who you're working for is your employer. Now, you may have, before the amendment of the labor code, you could have had contracts, but now your contractual arrangement must be one of permanency. So do not go to an employer and he says, well, I'm going to give you a 6 months contract. That is no longer a part of our law because of exploitation. So if an employer is going to contract you for work, it must be under the ambit of a permanent employee, especially if the job is continuous. If the job is just for a short time, like you might be an auditor, and they need you just for a short while to get things up to date, to do the audit, and after that there's no work, then they could also hire you in that kind of arrangement, because you know from the onset that the work will not continue. So your employment contract means a contract, whether expressed, implied, whether oral or written. It is agreed that the person will perform certain duties for another, who is the employer, and the term shall not be indentureship or contract of apprenticeship. So that's why I'm saying that when you're going to work, you are supposed to be a permanent employee. Some companies are unionized. And as a young worker, when you go into that employment, you will see the employees are covered by union. You have a right to be a member of the union, because as long as the bargaining agent is there, which is the union, all the benefits of the collective agreement will be given to you. So, and trade union is an organization in which employees participate and which exists for the purpose, in whole or in part, to deal with the employer on behalf of the employees. So, I'm sure some of you are already in a job and might not be unionized, and you're saying, I've been working there for a while and I've not got a salary increase. Where there's no union, the employer is no obligation to give you a salary increase. Negotiation with a union and the employer is what sometimes gives employees increase in salary. Unless you have a good employer who see your work and see that you have been performing, most times you will work for years without getting a salary increase or any other benefits. So your wages is what you work for. And your wage could be paid either weekly, to every 2 weeks, or monthly. Now, we are governed by a minimum wage in Antigua and Barbuda. And the minimum wage is $8.20 per hour, which is $65.60 per day. It's $328 for 5 days, $393.60 for 6 days. If you are a monthly paid employee, the minimum wage is $1,421.33 if you are a 5-day worker, and $1,705.60 if you work 6 days a week. Any violation of minimum wage can be sanctioned, and you must be paid whatever you were paid short. As young people, you're not thinking about severance pay, but severance pay is a part of your employment arrangement. So you've been there for 2 years, and the company goes under, and they have to make your position redundant, you're entitled to severance pay. And severance pay is 1 day pay for each month work. Covered by a collective agreement, you can get up to 6 weeks to a month. During the course of your employment, if you have a misconduct is a broad term, but the labor could speak of misconduct. And misconduct can be coming to work late, not performing duties, or you can be as harsh as stealing. Those are misconduct. And the employer can take action against you if you do misconduct. And you could be suspended. And suspension is time away from work without pay. So you're not paid when you're out on suspension. And if you did steal, then the company could dismiss you. Sometimes a company takes action against you, which is not fair, and you would call that an unfair dismissal. And you could challenge that dismissal, and if you win, you're compensated with severance pay. The basic wage, and that means a part of your wage for service which is payable in money for normal hours worked. Your gross pay is the total for service received in money in kind and in privileges or allowances, including gratuities and premium pay. Hours of work, and that's the period in which the employer have you under their control. Our work day is 8 hours a day. Anything above 8 hours goes into what you call premium pay, which is overtime. You call it overtime. So if you work 8 hours, the employer can give you 15 minutes break, paid break. So you'll be there for 8 hours and you get your 15 minutes break. If you're getting a meal break or a lunch break, then you will be there for 9 hours if it's an hour lunch, 8 hours for work, and 1 hour unpaid. So in essence, you'll be at the work site for 9 hours. I spoke about redundancy a little ago. And redundancy is by virtue whereby the company is not doing well, or one of the department is overstaffed and they need to reduce their amount of employees. That is redundancy. And most times redundancy has to be looked at in fairness, whereby you look at the last in person who last come to work there should be the first person, because seniority sometimes rule. But employers have moved somewhat to show that some employees are not performing, and instead of that new employee who is performing, they are to send home another employee. So, on the commencement of your employment, I mentioned that the employer must give you a letter of employment stating, and that is within 10 days of your employment. And it should have your general responsibilities and related duties for you to do, your hours of work, and your rest period. So if you have half an hour lunch, it should be stipulated that you have half an hour lunch, or if you have an hour lunch, if there's no lunch, meaning that they will pay you the lunch of 15 minutes. The starting pay. A lot of people come to the union. I started there, and after probation, they didn't give me a raise. Unless it's stipulated in the contract that after you pass probation that you get an increase, then the salary that you give you is the salary that you will move on with. The terms of employment, the period of your probation, in Antigua 3 months is the normal probation time. But if there's a union, the union can negotiate a shorter probation time. Like some in the hotel, if you work in the hotel and you've worked in a previous hotel and your probation period will be 1 month. So according to a union can negotiate the probation period to be shorter, and it also says that in the event that there is supposed to be an extension of your probation period. It has to be agreed by a union. They cannot extend a probation period unless it's mutually agreed by a union. Your basic wage, I would have thought that. Premium pay, would have thought that. So the company is also supposed to put in that employment letter your leave privileges. So if you're entitled to vacation leave, well, you would be entitled to vacation leave of 12 days as per the labor code. If there's a situation whereby you get more vacation after you would have been in the employment for a particular amount of years, then they must take it also. Now, I'll go on to the probation period and the definition of it. Because a lot of people would say to us that I've been on the probation and I didn't do anything and the company terminated me. So it says here in the labor code, a new employee's probation period may not exceed 3 months duration unless there is a provision by a collective agreement. It goes on to say during the period of probation, the employee should be given reasonable training. So it's not right for an employer to hire you, don't train you how to do the job, and then at the end of the 3 months just say you didn't perform and terminate you. But there is also a part of the that we've been challenging as a union, because it did say during this probation period, the employee's employment may be terminated without any reason. And we're saying, yeah, I think you should give me a reason, because if I've been performing and I have been coming to work and everything, and you just say, go home, terminate me, I should know why I'm being terminated. So we've been challenging this part of the labor code to say that we should get a reason. And the only reason they're saying that they can terminate you is if you want to be a part of the union, and because you made that clear, they terminate you. That's the only time you can challenge your termination. Now, according to how you're being paid, whether weekly, 2 weeks, or monthly, anything that the employer is going to do to you, you must get notice in relation to how you're being paid. And this is what the labor code says. It says in respect to all, the only time that you get 24 hours notice is during probation period. So during the probation and you're not performing, the employer could give you 24 hours notice that they're going to terminate your service because you did not perform during your probation period. Sorry. With respect to all other employees, the said notice shall be equivalent to your pay period. As I said, if you're a weekly paid employee, you get a week notice. Every 2 weeks, you get a 2 weeks notice. A month's notice. Now, the labor code is clear with regards to termination of an employee. An employee who has passed probation should not be unfairly dismissed. Should not be unfairly dismissed. And the employer, upon termination, must give the employee a letter of termination with the precise reason for the termination. So they just can't tell you go home. If they do so, you have a strong case because they would have been in violation of the labor code, which states that they must give you a letter within 7 days of the termination. Employees have leave privileges, and the labor code is clear that on a public holiday, if you work, you are entitled to time and a half plus your normal base pay. Layman's term, you're entitled to 2.5 times for that day. You work for $50, you get $50, then you get $50 again, then you get $25. For that day, you will make $125. If you do not work on a public holiday, like I work Monday to Friday, so these 2 holidays that is coming up, I would not be at work. I am entitled to my basic pay, which should not suffer loss because I did not go to work because it's a public holiday. So there are 2 different types, one when you work and the other when you don't work. Employees are also entitled to sick leave, and the labor code stipulates that you're entitled to 12 days per year. Now, the 12 days a year is whether it is with a call-in or a medical certificate. A lot of people have the notion that you have 2 types of sick days, one when you call in and one when you send in a medical certificate. It's not so. It's 1 sick days. So if you send in a sick leave and you have your 12 days, the employer is to pay you 100% for that sick leave. If you continue to be sick, then the employer do not have to pay you anything. So this is the reason why unions are there, because under collective agreement, the union will have negotiated more sick leave for you that you will get at 40% for a period of time. So, importance of having a union, yes, that's really important, because when you're not unionized, some of the benefits that your fellow young people, co-workers, other people you like business gets, you might not get it. You're also entitled to vacation. And vacation is paid day away from work. So you're entitled by law to 12 days, 1 day pay for each month work. Again, on the union negotiate that you get more when you continue to work at the workplace. So the more tenure you have, the more vacation you will get. If I'm driving home to you young people that union is important, it's because I am a union member and I'm an officer of the union. So you're entitled to vacation pay, and the employer must give you your vacation leave after 12 months of work. Sometimes an employer will give you the vacation in lieu, meaning that they give you before you are entitled to the full amount, because they understand that you will continue to work. A female employee, after 1 year, is entitled to maternity leave. And the maternity leave is 40% of your basic wage while on maternity. And maternity is for 6 weeks. The full total maternity is 13, but the employer only pay for 6 weeks. Social Security will pay you for the full 13 weeks. Another thing that employees must understand, and this is most times within shift system, and the labor code never envisioned that they will have a shift system situation. They were more a Monday to Friday, morning till 4:30 kind of arrangement. Now you have the hotels and other business that operate 24 hours that the employee could be off in the week and work a weekend and those kind of things. And the law says that if you're on a shift, you should not work more than 6 days consecutively. So even if it runs into another shift or another schedule, you should get a break after 6 days of working. So do not allow them to have you 8, 9 days straight. I know this happens sometimes in hotels, and we have always challenged them because an employee is entitled to get to rest so that they perform their duties in a proper manner. So the employer may deduct from your salary all the taxes, which is Social Security, medical benefit, educational levy. Now, a lot of people come to the union and say, the employer have not deducted from my salary and those kind of things. These are things that you must ensure, because Social Security goes towards your pension, medical benefit goes to if you need help and assistance if you're sick, and certain type of medication, and education levy is for helping out with the younger ones who, families that can take care of the children. So you get books and other things from the education levy. They also provide scholarships and those kind of things. And if you are working at an area where there's a union, the union dues. So all those are to be deducted from your salary. If you have a medical plan, and with the company can deduct from your salary the medical plan. If there's a thrift fund, and most people might not know what those things are, when you get into an employment where you have those benefits that were negotiated by the union for the benefit of the employees, you will see them. So, and those are, and if you go and get a loan, you authorize the company to deduct this from your salary and send to the bank. If your employer lending money, the employer has no right to charge you interest on the money, because he's at the bank and it's somewhat of a loan, and you're supposed to pay him back the $5,000 that you borrowed from him. He's not supposed to get $5,100 before he charge you for lending you the money. The employer is supposed to pay you at the end of your pay cycle. We have a lot of people that is owed 2 weeks, 3 weeks after providing the labor, and these are things that the union address, because the labor code is clear. I must be paid after I provide myself, and that is a part of the contractual arrangement that I have with you. I give you service, you give me pay. If you read me, I'm speaking a lot about the union. And as young people, you may go into a workforce that is already unionized, and you would not understand the struggles that those employees had to go through in order to get the benefits that you're coming in to enjoy. And Because of that, a lot of people think that they don't need a union. The union don't make sense. But because you don't know the history is why you would think that way. The union is the one that allowed change to the employment platform in Antigua and Barbuda. Under the law of Antigua and Barbuda, you can join a union at the age of 16. As long as you start to work, you just advise the employer to deduct your union dues and send them to the union, or you can come to the union on your own and pay in your membership. All the benefits and the protection that employees see today is because of a union. Is it? 1 o'clock. 1 o'clock. This includes the minimum wage. 1. Yeah, 2. Yeah, sorry. The minimum wage and the union on the tripartite committee discussed the minimum wage. The minimum wage was changed in 2015 to 820. So the union is part of that discussion. The Antigua Barbuda Workers Union was instrumental in getting the Social Security in place because we recognize that there must be something for employees upon retirement. Unions fought for the 8-hour work day, for overtime, occupational health and safety. And that is one thing employees must, and as young people, because you're working and you might have slipped on the job, you laugh, you get up, and then you go home, then your back is hurting, but you never reported it to management. Under the Occupational Health and Safety Act, you must report it immediately. That will then cover you so that the employer takes care of your injury. And while you're out on an occupational health injury, the employer is supposed to pay you 75% of your wages plus your bills, doctor bill. If you have to go to the doctor, if they prescribe medication, they're supposed to give you back the money. If you have to go to therapy, they're supposed to send you to the therapist. So, and the reason why it's important that anything that happened to you at the workplace, and the health and safety is not now just falls, slips, and those kind of things. Sometimes you have a air condition that have mold, or a fridge in the kitchen that have mold that start to, make your nose bleed and those kind of stuff. Those, even looking at the computer and your eyes start getting damaged, all those, as long as you can prove that because I've been looking at the computer for such a long time that my eyes start to develop whatever it is, then you should report those matters. And reporting is the order of the day when it comes to occupational health and safety. So I think I would have captured a lot, and I am certain that all employees understand the need for union, because everything that I was spoken about from the labor code is the bare minimum, and with the union those could be enhanced. As I said, the vacation 12 days till you die without a union. Your sick leave, 12 days until you die without the union. Your maternity leave, because in some of our collective agreement, the employee gets 40% for the full 13 weeks. The labor code is only 6 weeks that you get that 40% from the employer. So the union goes out and negotiate. For the male, it's not in the labor code as yet, but we have started to negotiate paternity leave because we want our young men or fathers to participate in the grading of their children. And we expect that they are supposed to be there upon the birth of the child. So we have negotiated 5 days paternity leave. You know, it's a start. Some people say they want for 30 weeks like the mother, but we're not going to reach anytime soon. But at least we're giving them the opportunity to be there when the baby is delivered and those kind of things. And the union will continue to negotiate good and fair terms and conditions for members, whether young or old. And only with the support of young people will the union continue, because you are the future. And when myself and the other members of that is at the union now goes off the scene, we will need the young people to carry on the union's mandate. And we're looking forward for you, if you're not at a unionized workplace, that you come and join the union, be part of it. We have a youth arm at the union, so you can come and join the union at any point in time. And I will close there for questions and answers. Hello?
Hi, anyone have any questions? Any question on any advice you should know on
Everybody got what I was saying? Everybody is good? Everybody understand?
Yeah, I feel like you're very informative. I feel so one question I would have, because it's something that I know a couple of my friends have experienced, is just like when you're entering a job and you get the first official, like you get your job description, but then your actual tasks and assignments are outside of that. What is the task? What is the next step for you in terms of, like, do they go to the workers union, try to like, or they go to the work itself, their boss, and try to petition for like a raise or like a change in position? What would really be the best route for them to take when they feel like they're going above their actual pay grade in terms of assignments?
So the employment letter usually states that these are the duties that you are given, and there's this little line that says that there's other duties related that they could ask you to do. And we've said this is related to your duties. So if you're an accountant, mapping the flow is not a part of, that's not in line with your duty. But if they ask you to do, just do, and as an accountant, this receivables, it's in line with what you're doing as an accountant. But if they're looking to add to your job description, the labor code does say that they can, and yes, you, the employee, also have the right to say, I do not agree. I am not in agreement with the additional duties unless I'm compensated. And if there's no agreement, then they say that the employer and the employee has to part ways, meaning that they will have to sever you for your years of service with the company.
Okay, thank you. Another question that I have is just like a lot of us are pursuing degrees, you know, trying to get a bachelor's, trying to get master's degrees. Is there does the labor code indicate that you just entering the work force, are you supposed to be paid in accordance to your qualification in terms of your degree, or should we not have that expectation going into a work?
Well, I will say to you, I've seen it, and one example right now is a statutory corporation. A lot of their employees have some form of degree, but they will always say, we have a salary scale. And even though you have a master or bachelor's and you're applying for this position, it might put you not at the bottom of the scale, maybe middle of the scale, but they're not going to really be compensating you up and above because you have a master's or anything of the sort. So I agree that when you do your additional studies, it's not to stay as a mere employee. It's either to become a manager and those kind of things. And it's good to always pursue more studies because it could only elevate you as a young person. But when you start off a job, don't expect them to be paying you more than the other people because they don't have a bachelor's or okay?
Great, thank you, thank you.
Anybody else? I was hoping to get some hard questions.
I thought so too, but I'm not. We're not seeing any.
I think your presentation was very thorough, so that's why most of our participants are a bit quiet.
Yeah.
And you did touch on termination. I just wanted to kind of understand, or for you to kind of explain, like how many disciplinary actions would you, or like, how do I phrase this? How many infractions or disciplinary actions would warrant a termination?
Okay, you have different levels of grievance. And I did mention coming to work late. You cannot just terminate an employee for coming to work late. You have to go through a process. You have to first write them, then suspend them, either continue, then termination. As I said, collective agreements that we negotiate will stipulate the type of grievance and the level of the discipline. So a person in a hotel now, if they've been going to work late, the manager has to speak to them first, call them in, have a conversation, and put a note in file to say that they did have that conversation. And if that employee did not improve, then they call him back in, give them the warning letter. If they still didn't improve, the suspension, still didn't improve, termination. You have insubordinate. And insubordinate is that your manager told you to do something and you didn't do it or refused to do it. And that type of behavior most times is warrant one, a written warning first or a suspension first. Okay? So, and theft, you know, is a immediate termination. So you don't have to go through the whole process of suspending and those kind of things when it comes to theft, fraudulent behavior, and those kind of things. So the type of discipline is based on the magnitude of the offense. Hope I captured what you're asking.
Yeah, thank you. Crystal Merchant has her hand up. Do you want to ask a question, Crystal?
Hello?
Yes. Okay.
Okay, I wanted to ask, I don't know if you touched on this, but because the current kept on coming off, what happens if you get damaged while working? So it's like a job-related injury. What happens then? Because I think I heard you say something about sick leave. What happens if you get damaged in the workplace?
Yes, that is referred as an occupational injury. And if you get damage on the job, the first thing you must do is report it to your immediate supervisor so that they will allow you to fill out an incident form. And then you should go, one, to your doctor, and then get, if you're that badly injured and cannot go to work, you get a sick leave. On the sick leave, it has occupational injury or not. The doctor is supposed to take occupational injury so that when you take that sick leave into the workplace, they know that it is a job-related sickness that you're having. The employer, while you're on sick leave, is supposed to pay you 75% of your salary, along with all the bills that you incur while you are on sick leave. Whether it is for prescription, whether you had to go into a therapy, whether you had to put on a cast, whether you had to buy those crutches, anything at all, that any expense that you incur, the employer is supposed to reimburse you the money that you would have spent. I've seen occupational injury go right up to surgery, whereby they had to travel overseas. The company is supposed to put you up. I think sometimes they pay for somebody to be there for you with you because you might not be able to move around after the surgery. So you must follow the process of reporting. And that is the most important factor of occupational health.
Thank you.
I also have another question. I see a lot of, well, some job ads would ask, they're looking for a male or they're looking specifically for, so they would ask for a specific gender. I wanted to know if that was legal or if that is, if you can answer if that is discriminatory. If you, yeah.
I will say yes, it's discriminatory, but I think they're not looking at a woman being able to do the same kind of lifting as a man would. And I've had the instance where the men say, well, they're hiring a person to do the same job like us, but they're not doing the full job and duties that we're doing, so they should not get the same pay. But in Antigua, it's equal pay for either gender. So you cannot discriminate. So, but the reason why they would say they want a male, it might be a type of job that they think that a woman cannot handle. Might be not right, but I don't know. If it's a construction job, it just limit who will apply, because most ladies will not apply for a construction job, knowing well the type of duties that is there to be done. So that's the reason why they put it. I put a beautician. I don't think most men in India are beautician, so I don't think they want to ask for a male person. They might say female to do nails and those kind of things. Correct?
Okay. All right. Thank you. If there are no more questions in the chat, I don't see any more questions. Okay. Seeing as there's no more questions, I just want to thank you, Kem, again, for for joining us today and giving us a truly informative session. I feel like it's, as I said, as I opened, I feel like it's very important for young people to know their rights as they go enter the workplace. And I feel like you really touched on the main points that they should know going forward. And also, I would encourage anybody to really read the labor code. You know, it's long, it's mundane, but you should, if you have any questions, you could really visit that. If you have any final words, Cam, for the participants.
Yeah, and I would say I've received calls from people doing, maybe human resource management, and they're doing their masters or in it, and they might want some history and some case studies and those kind of things. So we're always there and willing and ready to help the students who are away that may need some information with regards to documentations and those kind of things.
All right, great. All right, so thank you, Cam.
Yes, thank you so much.
Great presentation. Okay, all right. So now we'll be moving into our final session for the day. Sorry. No, I don't think so. Yeah, so we're moving into our final session for the day, which is workplace conduct. So we went into resume writing, preparing for that job, the interview etiquette once you get called for an interview. Now, rights into the workplace, we just did rights in the workplace. So once you finally get that job, you should know your rights. But also in our last session, we'll be covering your conduct in the workplace. So for you to maintain that job and the things that you should do within your job is very important as well. So we're going to introduce Shanoya Francis, who is an HR administrator at the Big Banana Group of companies. So she'll just jump right into her presentation. Yeah.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone.
Yeah.
Like the host, good? All right. So as the hostess said, my name is Shanoya Francis. I am the HR administrator for the Big Banana Group of companies. I did have a lot to speak about today, but I am on a bit of a time crunch this afternoon. So I will just be touching the basics so that you get a gauge on what is deemed good workplace conducts. And if you require any more information or a detailed explanation, please feel free to reach out to me. You can get my contact information from Ms. Tyson or even Ms. Reynolds. So let's just jump into it. First off, I would like to start by first stating that every workplace has its own or different atmosphere and working environment. An efficient and harmonious work environment is created largely by the way people behave in the workplace. This includes behavior of employees, employers, and to some extent, even the customers and the clients. When people exhibit inappropriate behaviors in the workplace, everyone suffers. For instance, if someone is frequently late to work, his or her disruptive behavior then affects your coworker's ability to do their job, because then he or she is dependent on the collaboration with the late arrival. So before I get started on what is appropriate workplace conduct, some advice I'd like to give you in the first instance for when you start a new job is to follow the workplace's behavior trends and best practices. Depending on the size of the organization company, your workplace behavior may be governed by the human resource departments. And by this, I mean that the documents that you would have been given at the start of your employment. So these documents could be your employee handbook or even a rule or code of conduct. Now, these documents tell you how to maintain a respectful workplace and what disciplinary action you might face if you were to disregard the rules or engage in problematic behavior in the workplace. I am going to touch on 5 ways that you can demonstrate you are an active participant in modeling appropriate workplace behavior. I did have 10, but as I said, I had to cut it a little bit short. So the first is to be inclusive. To be inclusive, that means to embrace diversity and to be respectful of the differences of others. At the end of the day, we all have more commonalities than we do differences. So focusing on what you have in common with each of your team members is a great place to start. Individuals that have increased exposure to people that are different than them typically tend to be more well-rounded, both professionally and personally. It does not take much to demonstrate inclusivity in the workplace. Simply be civil, respectful, open, and inviting. So practice putting your assumptions and your stereotypes aside. We all have them, but they are helpful to make others feel comfortable. So instead, make sure you learn with every step you take in your journey to be better inclusive at work. Even if you've never been in such a diverse environment or space, time and experience will let you know what responses are appropriate and what responses aren't. As long as you're aware of how your demeanor contributes to the inclusion of the lack thereof in the workplace, open to hearing and the opinions of others will change what you need to change. You'll be on your way to success. So basically, just treat people how you would like to be treated. The second thing that I'm going to touch on is gossiping. Do not engage in gossip. Sometimes what we share in common with our fellow employees is a frustration within the organization, an annoyance with another team member, or some scandalous lunchroom gossip. Here's the thing, okay? Any positive beliefs you may experience when taking a walk down the gossip lane is brief, but the negative impacts can be far-reaching. The truth is, when you engage in gossip, it says more about your character than it does about the original issue that got under your skin. And changes are that whomever you are gossiping with is likely to be gossiping about you down the road. When faced with an annoyance, ask yourself, what does this have to do with me? Will it matter in 5 minutes, 5 days, 5 weeks, 5 years? By putting a reality check on your frustrations, you are now allowing yourself to remove the emotional component and stay grounded. The third thing is to avoid oversharing and overasking. Chances are you will forge strong relationships at work, since so many of your waking hours are spent at work. It is natural that the workplace can start to resemble one giant family, and that is a good thing. But in order to protect your personal life from becoming workplace feed and to avoid making people around you uncomfortable, it is important to avoid oversharing. Naturally, you may have a workplace confidant that you share more private details of your life with, but those types of conversations are best handled outside of the workplace. Oversharing can be completely unintended as well. Sometimes you have to make a call to the doctor, pay a bill, take a call from a family member, and it is all possible. It is the best in those moments be handled on your break, in a private room, or step outside for a short period of time. Not only should you refrain from oversharing, it is also critically important that you don't engage in asking or pursuing for personal details from others you work with. Not only can you ask deeply personal questions, create an uncomfortable situation, it can also put you both and the company in legal jeopardy. The next is to refrain from controversy. So controversy seems to be pretty abundant in today's society, especially with things like cancel culture and the topic of vaccinations. So telling you to refrain from it may seem like an impossible task, but it's not. There is a time and place for all kinds of conversations and open dialogue and controversial issues. The workplace is not it. Sharing opinions on hot topics, political views, subjects of morality should be avoided in the traditional workplace. There's a time when it may not be avoided. For instance, a new law may have a direct impact of your work when faced with a situation like this. The key is to focus solely on discussing the law and what impact it has on the job or the company and nothing more. So for example, the government has put out a new gazette regarding vaccinations for hospitality workers. So it's important for us to keep the conversation on the work and not let our personal beliefs impact that decision, because we have to keep everyone in the work environment safe. There is likely going to be a time when someone brings up a local or national controversial subject, and they may strike a chord with you and ask, what's your opinion? Never be afraid to politely say, I understand you are interested in the subject, but I choose not to engage in such discussions at work. A graceful exit from the conversation will send a clear message that you are not interested without sounding too rude or disrespectful. The next is don't bring others down. The idea is that when people around you are successful, you will be more successful as well. This makes it even more fascinating that so many in the workplace have this dog-eat-dog attitude. So, which can create a conflict-filled, self-serving, and overall hostile work environment. So it's important to check your ego, your hostility, your aggression, your misery, and your judgmental tendencies at the door, and just watch the increased performance of everyone around you. If your coworker celebrates a win, you should celebrate with them, not stand to the side and be jealous. If they are working hard and getting hung up on something, offer a helping hand. If you accomplish a goal, give a nod to those that helped you be successful. Don't take all the praise for yourself. Don't sabotage others for your own gain. If you know that there's something you can say that can help somebody out, don't just keep it to yourself because you do not want them to win. You're all in this together and you need to be able to rely on each other. All right? Does anybody have any questions before I just close? I can't even hear.
How do you like?
I have a quick question. How would you deal with conflict in the workplace? Say you have an issue with another employee. How would you feel? How would you deal with that?
All right. So I'm going to give an example from my workplace. So sometimes we have conflict and employees prefer when if there's an issue that the person comes straight to them and not just go right through the superior. So my advice to that situation is first, you find out if you can settle it with the person you are having a conflict with, you go to them. But if you've tried multiple times and nothing is being resolved, that is when you take the step to talk to your supervisor or your manager. I would advise not to just ignore the conflict, because as you ignore it, it just kind of builds and builds and builds. And then at the end of the day, it explodes to this huge thing that could have been nipped in the bud from the beginning. All right?
Yeah, thank you.
Hi, good afternoon. You said that you should, not be involved in like workplace gossip as much as possible. What if you have like a coworker who is always trying to like drag you into gossip, even though you try to avoid it as much as possible? What is your advice in dealing with a situation like that?
Right. Firstly, I would say don't respond to anything that they say. Like if they're gossiping with you, don't egg them on or continue. But what you can do to help them to stop is politely just ask. I understand that you want to speak about this situation, but I would rather not get into somebody else's drama or business. It's not for me. That's the best advice that I can give. If they keep dragging you on, then I guess it would be a talk with your manager or your supervisor to try and get it resolved.
Okay, I have a question. So, we have different type of customers that may come into a place or whatever. As an employee, if you're dealing with, what's the ideal way to deal with like a rowdy customer or someone who may be difficult?
Okay. Well, I work for Big Banana, so we are in the food industry. So what we tell our employees is that the first instance, if somebody is being rude or discourteous, the first thing you have to say is like, okay, hold on, give me a second, I'll let you speak with my supervisor. Because if you continue to talk, this is where words get twisted. And then a week later, the customer comes back and they speak with your supervisor or or some kind of head, like your director, and then it automatically becomes a he said, she said. So if you just say, okay, I'm gonna just get my supervisor and you can speak with them directly, your supervisor knows that you tried your best and he or she will step in and resolve the issue. but never handle those kind of situations on your own, because again, it becomes he said, she said.
Okay, thank you. One last question. I know a lot of people here maybe just starting off in a job and whatever, or whatever the case may be. If someone feels like they did something like a grave mistake within like working, being on their own, what steps do you think they should take? Should they try to correct it themselves? Should they go to someone, but they may not want to go to someone ahead because they fear that they're in a probationary basis, so they may lose their job. What's the best approach someone can do in that kind of instance?
All right. First thing is, don't try and hide your mistake. If you keep trying to hide it, then it's gonna when it comes up, then it's gonna be a bigger issue than it was in the beginning. My managing director, he actually hates when we hide our mistakes, because when it pops up, then he pops off because he's upset. So if you are making a mistake, it's first thing you should do is check with your supervisor, check with your manager, and let them know what you did wrong and ask, how can I correct it? Or even if when you first start a job, you most likely will be shadowing somebody else. You can also ask, oh my gosh, I did this. Can you tell me how I can correct it? Is there an appropriate way? But don't try and figure it out yourself and make the situation worse, because then that is what's going to impact your probation performance evaluation.
Thank you.
Thank you for that response, Shanoya. I actually have a question. If you see another employee, like another coworker, doing something that they shouldn't be doing, and let's say it's like a serious breach of the employee's rules or code of conduct, what should you do in those circumstances, especially if you're not, in HR or you don't have a managerial position? Like, what should you do? Should you report it and kind of be in a little beef with that person? Like, what should be the best
You should definitely report anything you see any employee that is doing that is incorrect, because it could be a health and safety thing. If you're hold on, I'm trying to get my thoughts together. If you're yes, so if you don't report it and then it becomes something bigger, then the person's going to say, but so and so saw and they didn't say anything to me, so I thought I was doing the correct thing. You need to report anything that you see somebody is doing incorrectly. Your human resource manager will not be telling the person, oh, this is the employee who told me that he or she will keep it confidential. So you should not think that, okay, if I rat out on her, everybody in the office is going to know. No, it will be kept confidential.
Thank you. That was a good response. Do we have any other questions from the participants? Any advice, any specific thing you'd like to know?
Was there a situation that you've been placed in, that the other people can benefit from? Not seeing. Okay, so seeing as there's no more questions, as Shanoya indicated before, she'll be giving us her contact details and we can share that with you if you guys have any other questions along the line. We do thank Shanoya for coming. We do know that she has a prior engagement right after this. So we do thank you for your time, and we'll do a quick discussion on the next session. So thank you, Shanoya. It was a very informative session.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm sorry that it was so short. My bus for my workplace is actually outside right now, so I'm trying to run out.
That's no problem. But it was a very concise and informative session. So thank you.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye.
All right, participants. So that was our last session with the presenter. As indicated beforehand in our emails, it was supposed to be 5 sessions, with our last session being on personal branding and networking, but unfortunately, the presenter couldn't make it or confirm on to today's date. So, but we do understand that it's something important for young people look forward to, like focusing on and improving upon themselves, because there's not really a guideline out there, and it's not something that you learn in school really. It's something that you have to learn along the way. I know a lot of people had indicated beforehand if there could be something on networking, because that's a big thing, especially here in Antigua, because it's kind of a link kind of thing. So unfortunately, as I said, we won't have this session today. But one thing I do encourage you participants to do is always have an elevator speech ready for yourself. So I would be dropping some links to some, I feel, very informative articles on it, as well as some YouTube videos that I see of some very effective interview elevator pitches and networking advice. Hopefully they do help. But if you have any other questions, hopefully we can organize a session at a later date as one of our professional development initiatives. But that is a wrap for today's sessions. I feel like all of them were very informative. I feel like we all could benefit from today's sessions. If you had to step out quickly or anything, we do have the videos from today on our YouTube page, because these are being live streamed. So we'll share the links in the group. If you're not in the WhatsApp group, please indicate so via email, so we can add you, because those are the most up-to-date updates that we have is through that medium. But as I said, that's it for today. I thank you so much for staying with us since 10 a.m. And we do hope that it was beneficial for you guys as well as to us. So, anything else to say?
No, but I just hope you guys had a great time listening and learning from the presenters.
Yeah.
And you got real life tips that you'll carry well in the future. And we help to clarify any issues you had or any pressing concerns you had about anything in relation to the workplace.
Mm-hmm. And if you do have any other questions, you can always drop it in the chat, in the WhatsApp chat or via email. We do see someone indicating that they would like some contact details for some of the presenters. So we will provide those in the chat afterwards, as I said earlier. So we do look forward for tomorrow. Tomorrow is mentorship, which is basically focused on 5 career fields in Antigua. And we have some great presenters going to speak on their experience and give advice on those respective career fields. I'm just going to say them over again one time. It's accounting and finance, marketing, tourism and human resource, medical sciences and nursing, law, and engineering and technology. It is really, like, I love those sessions. I feel like you really get insight into how, like, we all have an idea of the career that we want, but we don't really know how it operates within our country, and what are the steps that we should take to really get into that career field. So I do hope to see you guys again tomorrow in your respective fields. And look out for our email later today with the links to the sessions. So that's it for today. Thank you again, and see you guys tomorrow.
Bye.
Bye.